You are listening to Faithless Brewing, a Magic the Gathering podcast for the Spike Rogue. Each week we design new decks for tournament play. We put our creations to the test and share our findings on the air. Today we present part 1 of our Dominaria United full set review with a look at every card that's fit to brew in Modern and Pioneer. We also review the upcoming releases for Magic in 2023, when Elesh, Norn, and Gandalf face off against Oko 2. That's all coming up on Faithless Brewing. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome to the Faithless Brewing podcast. I'm your host, Dan Schriever, also known as Cave Dan Online, here at the beginning of the historic Season 15 of Faithless Brewing, all about Dominaria United. Joining me for this exciting kickoff, all the way from Buenos Aires, Argentina, you know him as Mord to Light, it's Emmy Sagasti. Emmy, welcome back.
Heyo, thanks Dan, how is it going?
You picked a good day to come back. How was your trip?
It was really good. We went on like a whole week trip to the south, which is called like the end of the world because it's literally the southest point in the whole continental land outside of literally Antarctica. And we went on a ski trip with a couple of friends.
Yeah, I know like conceptually that the world is round, like it's a globe, but whenever I think about the very, very far south, the southern tip of Argentina, I feel myself like falling off, you know? Like it just feels way down there.
Yeah, it's just due to the south. But yeah, really fun trip, really cheap because everything is cheap in here if you count it in dollars. So had a lot of fun.
Yeah, the pictures you posted in our Discord just look absolutely gorgeous.
The place was gorgeous. And I just went like snowboarding every single day, fell on my back on too fast of a speed, cracked my ass. And now I have a tiny fissure. So living hurts.
3 red, bury a target artifact or creature, a little fissure on Mort.
No, stop right there.
Well, I hope you recover from that. That sounds quite painful.
But yeah, besides that, I'm really excited, had a lot of fun, and really glad to be back because I was also extremely happy with today's announcements and everything that came with it.
Oh yeah. We're recording a little bit later than usual this week because today, Thursday, was the big reveal. What do they call it? Wizards Presents a combined Dungeons & Dragons and Magic in 2023. Big show to do. It was worth the wait. And it was a long show. It was like an hour and a half almost. But once they finally got rolling, I mean, it was awesome.
I love that nobody cared about the 25 first minutes and everybody was in chat spamming like, Zeta, sit.
Wasn't that strange? Like, I sat through the whole thing because I kept expecting them to like say something relevant for Magic. It really put in perspective like how popular Dungeons & Dragons is in the imagination, the cultural imagination. Like D&D is having a moment, at least in the US.
I mean, Stranger Things did really help with that.
For sure. Stranger Things. For me, it was Riverdale. The season 3 Griffins and Gargoyles plotline was exquisite TV on the CW. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Does anyone buy products for Dungeons & Dragons? Like, the times that I've played, I've never bought anything for it. It's just like you show up and...
I think a lot of people do, and I tend to play with product that a friend buys, and every LGS here has at least some number of Dungeons & Dragons products, so there has to be some consumption of it.
Okay. I did have like a moment of doubt. Like, you know, we see the revenue numbers for Hasbro and for Wizards, and they combined D&D and Magic into one division. And I was like, wait, like is Dungeons & Dragons the big star of the division? Like, is that why they're spending half an hour showing me D&D campaigns?
I mean, D&D does make some money. I think it's less than Magic, and if you put it at the end... So, this is what happens. I don't think Dungeons & Dragons players would be interested enough to wait for the whole hour and a half of Magic, but Magic players are excited enough for spoilers that they're willing to wait the 20-minute delay for Dungeons & Dragons. So, you have to put it on front so you get everyone watching it.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Okay, so they knew that Magic was the big draw.
They knew it.
So we're still more important than D&D. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So they had to put it...
Order is restored.
The other play was to put it in the middle, but then you just, like, Yeah. It just splits it in half too much, I think. So I like what they did, and I think it's necessary in order to get both tribbles.
Fair point. Good point. So we're not going to talk about D&D today. We're going to be focusing all on the Magic. We're going to go through their announcements, their lineup for 2023, and they dropped about 12, 15 new cards already from Dominaria United. We're going to take a look at those. So we got a big show coming up. Before we dive into all that, though, let's just do some quick housekeeping right at the top. A reminder that if you enjoy the show, the best way to support the podcast is by joining our Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/faithlessbrewing. A pledge to any tier gets you access to our Discord channel, and I gotta say, preview season is the best time to be in the Faithless Brewing Discord.
Exactly. You can always join us, see our beautiful bad ideas that might not see the light in here, because if every brew was good, we would actually win something. Instead of punting our head into the walls trying to stumble into gold.
That's not the Faithless way.
That's not the Faithless way.
That's not why we're here. We also have a new community league starting up by popular demand. I think this is iteration 7 or 8 of the Faithless Brewing Community League. Just a friendly league, played out usually over 4 weeks. Experimenting with hypothetical formats, sometimes weird brew around rules, sometimes stipulations, sometimes just good, clean, modern, and pioneer. It's always a great time, so if you're already a member of our Discord and are interested in getting some friendly matches in, I believe signups are open for a few more days. And if you're just looking for some chill brewers to play against, we'd love to have you here. We have 2 new patrons we do want to welcome this week. They are Cabbage Core and AOW0526. So thank you very much to both those individuals.
Yeah, thanks so much. Every single bug keeps our bad leagues going.
Exactly. Other follow-up. I did mention, I believe maybe it was last Friday, I'm not sure, that I had a tournament report going up.
Yeah, the Crabvine.
Exactly, and I shared some of my results with David on the podcast, but you can find a much more detailed write-up of that now on faithlessbrewing.com. There's a link in the show notes to this episode, or if you just go to our homepage, faithlessbrewing.com, you can find it all there. It was a fun exercise. I hope I did the deck proud. Didn't do great in terms of wins and losses. I think I went 4-3, but the process was good. Good exercise for me to just sort of keep track of, how did I actually affect the outcome of these games in the limited number of choices that I had available.
I mean, that tends to be the most important part, right? Because variance is going to change. The best thing, the important part about playing Magic is winning when you have good variance and making sure you win when your opponent doesn't exploit their own good luck. That's all we can do.
Exactly. All right, enough housekeeping. Let's get into the meat of it. Emmy, Wizards presents, Mord presents. Take us there.
Okay, so we're gonna go from low to top. First of all, pretty simple, pretty easy. Magic 30 Las Vegas, everybody knows about it. Gets joined by Magic 30 promos with some beautiful all border foil cards with only the foil borders, which is like the original way, which I think is Finderhor Elms, Ball Lightning, and Essential.
Yeah, those are the first 3. I guess they're going chronologically through the years. I was wondering if they were going to have a big Las Vegas plug in this show, and they did. And it was like, you can go buy your tickets now. Hurry over. And it was like, you actually can't buy your tickets.
You can't buy your tickets. There are no tickets. Tickets are fake.
Like, there's going to be a beta draft. And I'm like, yeah, those sold out within 4 hours. So, but that's cool.
That gets followed by not as exciting news about Dominaria Remastered, which is just gonna be a full draftable set with cards from all the 27 sets that were in Dominaria. And that's where the Force of Will comes from everybody that's like, oh, Force of Will, is this legal in Modern? No, this is from a reprint set. And a card I have never seen before, which is Arborea.
Arborea is from Legends, I believe. It's one of those cards that is expensive because people assume it's on the reserve list.
Wait, is Wall Enchantment still a legal thing?
Apparently. This is the first evidence we have of that.
Yeah, like if you play a Wall Enchantment and I play another one, do they kill it? Does one kill the other?
I believe so. I mean, Magic theoreticians have predicted that world enchantment still exists, but we never had confirmation until just now.
Okay.
So we won't know what happens until you actually try to cast Arborea.
Into another Arborea. Okay. Then we go to the beautiful modern legal set, Tales of Middle-earth, coming 2023. So we're literally getting playable Gandalf, playable Frodo, and playable Balrog at least announced as of yet in Modern. How do you feel about this, Dan?
Well, Mord, let me invite you to a little place. Come on a journey with me to a place I like to call Conspiracy Town. I talked about this on our last, our Chaos show, right? My my little side rant about the all-white Middle-earth. So they announced this like a year ago, right? The all-white Gandalf and all of the Caucasian hobbits. And as I was going on about this, you're just watching David's face and he's like, what the heck is this guy talking about? He's like, this is the most random rant. But the gist of it was in the preview art or the promotional art, right? I just pointed out that this looks nothing like any current Magic set.
Yeah.
Compare that to what they're saying about Dominaria United. They had like multiple people get on stage and be like, oh, Dominaria United, such a big world. It's so diverse. There's people who look like me on Dominaria. They actually had Maris come out and say that twice. So yeah, they do care about this a lot. And it's just very curious. I thought it was curious that the promo art for Lord of the Rings was like very, what David would call classic Tolkien-esque. Okay, so what's the conspiracy? Well, they revealed 2 more promotional arts today on the stream. One is Frodo. I believe this is a card called Call of the Ring. He's looking very ominous. The second one is this, what would you call this? The 15 or the 18 cards stitched together.
Oh!
Borderless arts, each one for a different card.
I'm gonna take that's the Battle of 5 Armies.
Something like that, yeah. If you take these cards and put them all side by side, they don't even have the black border.
Yeah.
It makes a giant panorama.
So it's gonna be like, the top 6, you have likely 2 instants, like an enchantment, an instant or sorcery, 2 creatures, a land art, likely a second land, a mountain, likely both. Into bottom left, it's likely creature, instant, legendary creature, legendary creature, legendary creature.
Yeah, you see some Nazgul flying around in the sky, and down at the bottom front, there's like someone who's maybe Aragorn or who knows. I see an elf, I see a dwarf, some humans.
I see a female elf. Yeah, this is Battle of 5 Armies 100%. So no Aragorn.
So, being me, of course, I'm like, well, what hue is their skin, of course? Like, let's zoom in real close and figure out what's going on here. And indeed, like, that they are all Caucasian. Middle-earthen, whatever you want to call this. But they've used their artistic liberty. They use the smoke of battle, the dirt and grime, to kind of make it like a little bit ambiguous. Like if you look at this Frodo art, right, he's obviously the same hobbit as the, Gandalf and all the Scottish hobbits behind him or whatever. But here Frodo looks, kind of olive-skinned, like Mediterranean Frodo, right? He's maybe Greek in this picture. So I think they actually cannot do it. I think that, as David said, they might just have a licensing agreement that says they cannot rewrite any of... They can't diversify this cast. Whereas if you look at something like the Amazon show that's coming out next week or whatever, it's like a very diverse cast.
Yeah, because Amazon show must have bought all the claim, and this must have been like a deal, like on the side. And also, the Lord of the Rings for 20 more years is not public license.
Okay.
That's why, this is something like really interesting that happens with Sherlock Holmes. Depending on the Sherlock Holmes book you're talking about, authors have enough capability of changing what they want based on the year it was written, because that book might or might not be public license. This happened with like an old show with Enola Holmes, I think, where Sherlock Holmes acted really like the Sherlock Holmes in the last books, while based on a story of the first ones, and they got sued because of that. Because that Sherlock Holmes is not legal yet for them to use. They have to use the Ascot Sherlock Holmes from original books for the story side, because new one is still not public licensed for 3 more years.
Right, there's something similar going on with like Winnie the Pooh. There's like this gritty Winnie the Pooh horror movie coming out, but they can't use Tigger because Tigger is still...
Tiger was written in posterior books, so he was not in the original group, and he's not legal claim. He's not a public claim.
Right, so Tigger does not appear in the Winnie the Pooh slasher film. We're talking about Dominaria United, of course.
No, we're talking about Lord of the Rings. We're gonna jump into Dominaria United eventually.
But you see where we're going with this, right? So it's like, okay, so David, I know he's just like, what the heck is Dan talking about? This is nuts. But it's true. I swear this is true. And I believe in my heart of hearts that like the people at Wizards, like they're pained by this and they're trying to come up with whatever trick they can use to like make it look not like an all-white Lord of the Rings. But I think their hands are tied.
Yeah, this Frodo is clearly white, but just so covered in dirt and such that he looks almost Latino in appearance.
Yeah, very ambiguous.
Exactly, and they're gonna try and keep it that way, I think, because most of the artists try to get as much diversity in their art as they can, but maybe they were just told, if you want to do it, hide it.
Exactly.
Followed by Lord of the Rings, we have something that excited me almost as much, which is the following 7 sets of our standard legal sets, starting with, of course, with Dominaria United, and I'm going to propose an extremely not... So I'm gonna make a claim that I have done 0 analysis about, which is why we only have 6 Painlands now, and it is that the 4 remaining Painland places have been ravaged by the history of Dominaria, and they don't exist as places anymore, and they're going to be printed in the Brothers War that's featured in the past.
There's no longer any brushland in Dominaria because
exactly,
of
the brushland,
climate change.
Exactly. The brushland is gone due to the Ice Age being gone.
Okay.
So in the Brothers War, where it is featured in that timeline, in that specific time, they're going to print them.
Interesting. Okay.
Because it would make no sense to have 6 lands with the original name and 4 without in the same set.
And is it like ecological change, or is it just the ravages of war?
Dominaria, when we last saw it, was in the Ice Age. So yeah, it's both. And you can see tiny details in that. For example, in the Sulfuric Springs, the demon that's sitting there is now a skull in the new art.
That was very cute. I like that detail.
But yeah, it's stuff like Cave of Koilos doesn't look nearly as similar as it did before, and I think it's exactly that. Underground River, Brushland and such, they're gonna come in Brothers War. So the next sets are Dominaria, Brothers War, which are both featured in Dominaria, one in the present, one in the past, and the past is like a setup for Phyrexia and March of the Machines. Phyrexia is gonna be set mostly in Phyrexia, while March of the Machines, I'm making the bold claim based on the art that was spoiled that's gonna be featured around all the planes. Why? Because we have a plane of Esika's Chariot. We have a picture of... What's the name of a Cyclops Fronteros, Esika's Chariot, Braska, alongside a dragon from Kamigawa all together.
Oh, I didn't look at that art that closely.
So we have a dragon from Kamigawa, Teros, and we have something from Eldraine, I think, I'm not quite sure, which is the wizard in the back, and Chandra. So that means that A, Tesseret joins the team, the good guys, and gives them access to the planar portal. B, they release Nicol Bolas from the prisoneries alongside Ugin.
Well, wait, where'd you get that from? You said you saw Nicol Bolas in the artwork?
No. But they have to get non-Planeswalker creatures into the same plane, and that can only be done right now with Tesseret's technology.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So, and Nicol Bolas for some reason was in prison and not killed.
What if the Phyrexians merge all planes into one?
That could actually happen, but yeah. So we have all those different of the last 5-6 legal sets all together fighting against Eleshnorn. So Healdred right now is like a mini boss setting us up for the big boss, which is gonna be Eleshnorn, who has not only taken control of the whole plane, but is actually attempting to control the multiverse.
So we're in a 4-set story arc, although it's actually 5 because there's 2 March of the Machines sets.
5 because we have the Aftermath. Yeah, so the Aftermath is gonna be like the cleanup step of everything else, just getting all the stories to the right place. Like, March of the Machines is likely gonna finish up in a huge climax fight, and the Aftermath is gonna be everything like the rebuilding, the reset up, how will everything get back into its original place after the chaos that Eleshnorn might cause in the multiverse.
They should have called it the cleanup step. That would have been very cute, very on brand.
March of the Machines cleanup step.
Somebody cast Giant Growth during the Phyrexia expansion and it wears off during the cleanup step.
That would have been the dream. But yeah, I'm really excited about that because I love Phyrexians. And there's the small chance that Eldrazi's showing the setup, but there's no evidence of that besides the fact that they have Tamillo under their control.
Okay, so kind of like Avengers Endgame vibes from this whole thing, right?
Yeah, they're going for that. They have been setting up everything. They have given us our heroes across different sets. We have people like Esika. We have the dragons from Kamigawa. We have different, like, big creatures. We have shown our side that they're joining against Elesh Norn in March of the Machine.
So from Dominaria United to the Brothers' War to Phyrexia, all will be one.
Yeah.
March of the Machine 1 and 2, right? This is all like apocalyptic stuff. World is potentially going to end. Is this the last Magic expansion ever? No, that's actually just the spring expansion.
And then we go to the most powerful expansion of them all, with a creature we fear much more than Elesh Norn. Oko, Electric Bongaloo. Wilds of Eldraine. Because why fear Elesh Norn when we can fear Oko 2? Twice upon a time. With big old staples like Twice Upon a Time and Oko.
Twice Upon a Time. If this is the second spell you cast in the game, it's free.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, is it weird that, like, looking at this lineup here, like, I look at Wilds of Eldraine and I'm like, this set's gonna be broken.
No, I think Wilds of Eldraine is gonna be really underpowered. I have the opposite thought.
It's gonna be such a letdown if that happens. I'm sure you're right. I'm sure they consider it a mistake.
Because they cannot risk Oko2 Electric Bongaloo.
I know, but the expectations are so high, like...
But think about it. I don't even realize the number of playable cards there are. So, ignoring the fact that Mystic Sanctuary is banned, and Oko is banned, and Once Upon a Time is banned, Castle Bantress, all the castles also play, in some deck or another, Bonecrusher Giant and Brazen Borrower are from that set.
Mystical Dispute is from that set.
Veil of Summer is from that set. That set, I think, has more playable cards than Modern Horizons 1 nowadays in Modern. Or it's pretty damn close.
I think Veil was from a core set. Claim the Firstborn is from...
Eldraine.
Cat Oven is from Eldraine.
If you look at the number of Eldraine cards in Modern and Pioneer, I think it's more cards in Modern than in Modern Horizons. And in Pioneer, it has to be close like a Modern Horizons 2 for Pioneer. Like, the setup for a lot of decks is Eldraine. Why? Because I don't know. Because it was busted as hell and they're not gonna risk that. On the contrary, Ixalan was terrible. And after Eldraine, we're going to the Lost Caverns of Ixalan.
This makes me feel like the power level's coming way back down, but... I don't know, like, is it weird of me to just, like, want Eldraine to be powerful again? Like, I don't want them to learn the wrong lesson.
But March of the Machine has to be powerful, right? Because it's like this big endgame set with 4 previews. So, Dominaria United, we don't know the power level, seems decent. The Brothers' War might be the weaker one of them, because in Phyrexia they have to get powerful, they have to get people hyped, because this is the Phyrexian set, this is setting up the enemy. It's a set to set up the enemy for the next 2. If the enemy seems too underwhelming, the rest of the set doesn't sell. Like, the idea, the concept falls backwards.
I mean, I read the Dominaria story that they put out, and it seemed like the heroes are barely hanging it together. Like, it's not going to be a contest, really. Like, they're so much weaker than the Phyrexians. So I don't know how they're even going to survive for 2 sets from now. Like, I feel like the Phyrexians are set up, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, but
they need to make powerful cards.
Also, the Ahani video is insanely good.
Oh, Ajani turned... Yeah, that was pretty slick. So, my plea to the play design team, if you're listening, if you still have time to, like, tweak some knobs on Eldraine, don't make it too weak. You know, take that Ginger Brute Planeswalker and, like, juice it up a little bit.
Ginger Brute Planeswalker, I'm afraid how big of a possibility that actually is.
Yeah. It's such a cool world. It's a beautiful world. It's a beautiful world. I mean, Wilds of Eldraine looks even more spectacular. I'm really excited for that set. I hope they do it justice.
It's the girl from... She's a Road Planeswalker. It's the girl from the trailer that sees his guy eaten by Karuk, just getting vengeance.
Oh, it's like the trailer is Garrick getting hunted by this gingerbread planeswalker.
Yeah,
from plane to plane.
But it's the girl that in the original trailer you see Garruk eating the girl. Guy. The girl sparks ignited when Garruk eated the other guy. And that's a trailer. She's chasing Garruk down the wilds. She's the threat. She's like Mongo from Trek. She's in the castles.
This is headcanon for me now. All right, let's manifest that.
And Ixalan, I have no idea about the Ixalan's lore besides the fact that the Sacred Sun, which was the artifact holding like everything together, is gone. So chaos. That's all we know. But it's 2024. It's just like...
Well, here's the thing, right? So you have to like zoom in on the dates, right? So Dominaria United is right now. Brothers War is listed as fall 2020. It's actually 2 months from the release of Dominaria United. This is going to be like the most compressed release schedule ever.
It's going to be Dominaria now, Brothers War October, November, Phyrexia January, February, March, and then March, both during March to like, I don't know, July, August.
But how is that even possible? Like, how can you have 2 March of the Machine sets in the spring?
I think they're gonna make them super close and small sets, like the 2 Ixalans were originally, which seem like you look at the first Ixalan and the second one and they seem like the same.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like these are going to be full-size releases. They did say Aftermath was going to be an epilogue of some sense, but...
Exactly. I think like March is going to be big and Aftermath is going to be tiny. Like March is going to be like 80% of a real set and Aftermath is going to be like 50 of a real set. And they're going to be like really compressed together. Okay,
so they're both technically spring releases. Nothing listed for summer, although that's when Lord of the Rings is coming out.
Yeah.
And then we have fall for Wilds of Eldraine, and then winter 2024, which would be like, the January, February release the next year for Ixalan. But that's so many sets. This is so many sets. Like, the fact that we only get like 6 weeks for Dominaria United before Brothers War comes out.
I don't care. Like, I see people complaining about too many sets all the time, and I'm like, so?
Well, I feel like we've been like in Capenna forever, right? So like, why not just stretch it out a little bit differently? Like, I know this is driven by retail demands and they need to have certain quarterly targets, but
yeah, but I mean,
as a brewer, it's exhausting.
I'm actually excited. Like, as long as it isn't like overwhelming, like as long as it's not like as powerful as Eldraine and Modern Lessons 2, they can give me as many sets as they want, as close together as they want.
Yeah, I guess I'm not really complaining about it. I'm just like dreading it. It's like, man, we're gonna have to move so fast. I just feel like I'm looking up at the mountain ahead of us, and like these are just gonna be so many cards to keep track of. We're gonna have to hustle to get through them, because I mean, just the ones that you revealed on day 1, which we should finally get to now, like they're super sweet, and this is just day 1 of the previews.
Yeah, they went for some amazing spoilers. So let's go straight into the meat of it. We get 6 Painlands, not 5, not 10. 6. That's what my previous theory was about the fact that it's more of a lore reason, that you cannot have 6 lands doing the exact same thing they did before with a different name.
Yeah, I think in the video they explained that, these locations only exist in Dominaria, so it could only happen now. The same is true for the Mirrodin Fastlands, the allied Fastlands. They can only happen on Mirrodin.
But Brushland could be anywhere.
Well... The Painlands are weaker than the Fastlands, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have allied Fastlands on Pioneer either. So, like, I think it's more important to get Seachrome Coast than it is to get Adarkar Wastes. That being said, the new ones for Pioneer are Adarkar Wastes, that's blue-white, Karplusan Forest, red-green, Sulphurous Springs, red-black. Karplusan Forest is a huge pickup because, red-green, you gotta play your Mana Elf on turn 1, and we've talked about this at length before, how sad it is that you have to play Mana Confluence to make that happen. Blue-whites, I mean, yeah, that's another color pair that can be aggressive if the mana supports it, right? So we've seen blue-white Spirits. I think blue-white Heroic might be an option now, or blue-white Auras, which is like a little bit better mana. I think that deck is at least worth exploring now in a way that it wasn't before.
Yeah. And besides that, someone went ahead 4 days ago and Goblins made a tweet telling everybody that someone bought 1,000 Painlands from them. Alongside multiple playsets of Liliana and a few dozens of Sibelun, Master of the Pearl Trident, and Lord of Atlantis.
So, GoldBots, I love buying from them. They're so cheap. They're always well stocked. But I think this tweet was meant to suggest insider trading. 4 days is not enough time for me to be insider trading. I think that 4 days ago, Morrow put out his teaser article, and I think people just were speculating about these cards.
Yeah, and I think the Painlands were something that could have really happened because Cave of Koilos is just a characteristical place
The first story from Dominaria United was set at the Caves of Koilos, so they had artwork for it in the story. So it was a pretty safe bet that paid lands were coming back. So I don't think that this is actually evidence of like somebody cheated.
No.
Somebody took a gamble.
We will never know. We will never know. But with that being said, because who doesn't love pain lands to get at least a little bit of mana, we can start with the actual factual creatures in this set, or actually spells in Dominaria.
Okay, let's do it. So we've got these arranged in order of ascending mana cost, as usual.
As usual.
We're going to be evaluating for 2 formats, that is Modern and Pioneer. We're not really going to worry about Standard, Historic, or Explorer right now.
Dan, this is embarrassing from you. How is the double color cards above the one colorless, any color peep, and one blue, and one color? This is a disappointment from your order and I expect nothing but perfection.
I don't know what you mean.
Jhoira should be below every other, any peep plus one color peep.
Oh, you're saying because the first card I put here is 1 in a red, and I put the blue-red card after it?
Yeah, like double color always goes below uncolor plus color.
But I said that it's ascending mana cost, and generic plus red is cheaper than blue plus red.
Exactly, then why is 1 and a white below blue and a white? Don't save yourself by lying to me, Dan. This was a mistake.
No, I'm saying 1 and a white is a cheaper mana cost than blue-white.
Yeah, exactly. And
even though they both have mana value 2.
Yeah, and you have white and a blue above 1 and a white.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, I do. Well,
but
I also have a different 1 and a white at the top.
Heresy.
Anyway, I don't actually order them like this within mana value 2.
No, you don't. But I just love how you obsess over one part and the other is irrelevant.
I'm like staring at the second card here. It's 1 and a white. I'm like, what are you talking about? But yeah, there's a second 1 and a white card.
There's too many 1 and a white.
Yeah, they're both pretty good actually.
Yeah.
But we'll start with a bad one. Radha's Firebrand. 1 red, human warrior, 3/1. Whenever Radha's Firebrand attacks, target creature defending player controls with power less than Radha's Firebrand's power can't block this turn. It has activated ability with Domain. Domain is a returning mechanic. It checks how many basic land types you have in play. So in this case, 5 and a red is the activation cost, but that 5 is reduced by 1 for each land type, or each basic land type, I should say, among lands you control. When you pay this cost, Radha's Firebrand gets +2/+2 until end of turn, activate only once per turn. So if you had all 5 basic land types, you would have to only pay 1 red mana to pump Radha's Firebrand up to a 5/3 at instant speed.
So you can pay 1 red mana to make your 2-drop a worse territorial cow. Nice.
Well, you're thinking modern, right? Okay, so this is the case where we have to differentiate formats, right? Because
No, I'm going to start by removing modern from the equation with that statement. Like, just straight up removing modern from the conversation for this card.
Sure.
And then we can focus on Pioneer.
Yeah, so I guess the point I would make about this card in particular, or in Domain in general, is that when you're evaluating mechanics, you do have to start, at least this is how I do it, you start by imagining the absolute best case scenario. Right? Imagine that I always have all 5 basic land types. So in this case, Radha's Firebrand costs 2 for a 3/1, activated ability is just a single red to pump it up. Imagine that's always the case, and then ask yourself, would I actually play this card in the best case scenario? Hopefully the answer is yes, and then you have to like go to the next step of figuring out, okay, how much work do I have to do to achieve that? Or like, can I live with 3 or 4 types, etc., etc. But if the answer was even with all 5 types, it's still not good enough, then we have to set the card aside, right? This is a trap that brewers can fall into. If you forget that the best case scenario is still not good enough, you might find yourself like wasting a lot of time trying to set this up and then realize it was never actually good enough to begin with.
Mm.
So for me, Radha's Firebrand is like, yeah, it's not quite there. Even at 3/1 that pumps up to 5/3 for red, it's not quite there.
Yeah, I don't think it's a playable creature. Like 2 mana 3/1 in most scenarios with some minor upside, I don't think it's playable.
On the flip side, maybe the activated ability is a complete distraction. Maybe it's just like 3/1 for 2 and it kind of terminates a creature whenever it attacks, right?
Yeah.
This should be able to target most things. So blocking is off the table as long as you have the Firebrand. So maybe that's actually the better way to evaluate this card.
As a 2-mana 3/1 that makes something unable to block. So, what's the name of the creature that does that has the bad escape from Hour of Devastation? Kenra...
Earthshaker Kenra. I mean, that card was pretty good. That was 2/1 for 2, and then it had Eternalize for 6, came back as a 4/4.
Yeah, but it has haste as well.
True. On-Crop Crasher saw a lot of play in that standard as well. I mean, it was very, very hard to do combat against that deck.
But I think Crusher is better than this.
Oh, really?
I mean, haste is haste.
Okay. I mean, the ability is better than it looks. The first ability, not the second one, I should say.
Yeah.
So if you have like a mono red deck that needs to have humans and you don't like Robber of the Rich for some reason, maybe this is a card you could consider, but yeah, not having haste is kind of bad. All right, moving on. The next card costs 1 and a white. Guardian of New Benalia. 2/2 Human Soldier.
Banding is back.
Yeah, new banding, neo banding. This ability is called Enlist. As this creature attacks, you may tap a non-attacking creature you control without summoning sickness. When you do, add that creature's power to this creature's power until end of turn. So you have your 2/2 Guardian Benalia, go to combat, I attack with my Guardian Benalia, I enlist some other creature I have. It gets to like treating that other creature as like a vehicle or a equipment or something. You're borrowing its power. Guardian is now pumped up, punching for a lot of damage, and it also has an additional bonus. Whenever Guardian of New Benalia enlists a creature, you get to scry too, so that's pretty good. And then, if the case that wasn't enough, because this is a rare, it has more text, discard a card at any time to give Guardian of New Benalia indestructible until end of turn, and tap it. 2/2 for 2.
So this is straight up competing with Seasoned Hallowblade, and I think it's better than Hallowblade.
I think so too, just because of the quantity of text, but Hallowblade's a 3/1, right? Am I ever going to use the enlist ability? I'm not sure.
If you're planning on using the list abilities semicons, I think in most combat scenarios you will, because how many times were you playing like a mirror or aggro base against aggro or against midrange, and the only creature you can attack with is the Hallowblade because you don't trade. You just get to discard a card.
That's never happened to me, but I will take your word for it.
How come you never attacked with a Hallowblade?
Well, I have, but not in like a mirror where everyone's stalled out.
But you're playing like semi-stalled board, your opponent has a 2/2, you have a Hallowblade and a 2/2, and you hold your 2/2 back and attack with the Hallowblade.
I mean, the Guardian to me needs to trample or some way to like actually punch through, like it needs to get protection or something. The fact that, you have to tap a non-summoning sick creature, which kind of hurts, right? You could just be attacking with both these. Like, let's say it's a humans deck. Presumably my other creature also has counters from Thalia's Lieutenant or whatever. Like, I don't want to just send one creature unless I really, really need to scry.
I mean, Scry 2 is... I mean, if your opponent has no blockers, you're doing the same amount of damage while getting a Scry 2.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this one's, like, way better than Hallowblade, and I should say that Hallowblade is, like, almost good enough. Even just as a discard outload or something. Like, it's a very, very versatile effect, and putting that effect on an even more juiced up creature has got to be a good thing. So, yeah, I expect this, it's going to be cheap, pick up a playset, and we'll see what we can do with it. But it's a tool, it's not like a build around per se.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just an addition to that. It's not like an amazing card, it's like a good beatdown stick.
Yeah. All right, proceeding in exactly sequential order.
For now.
Our next card costs blue and a red. Emmy, tell us about Jhoira.
So, beautiful Jhoira. Bad Ether Vial for artifacts, as we better know it. 2 mana 2/3, a blue and a red for a human artificer. You may tap Jhoira to put 2 Ingenuity counters on itself, and then you may put an artifact card with mana value lower or equal to the number of Ingenuity counters. So, you tap her down, you may put a 2-drop into play. You tap her down again, you can put a 4-drop or less into play, and so on and so forth. So,
kind of like a Ether Vial, but...
Artifact Ether Vial, and can be on a creature, and can be lower, which is really important. There's the fun comment with Corridor Monitor, if it survives, you immediately get a 4-drop into play.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so tap Jhoira, put 2 Ingenuity counters, that's enough to put your Corridor Monitor into play, untap Jhoira, tap her, now she's got 4 counters, put Phyrexian Metamorph into play, copy the Corridor Monitor. We just keep going.
We put Corridor Monitor, we put Bola Citadel.
Yeah, if our hand is exactly...
So your hand is... So you keep your 7 and you have 2 lands, 2 Corridor Monitors, Jhoira and Bola Citadel. And you have a turn 3 Citadel all for yourself.
Apart from the coolness of Jhoira, the concern I have as a brewer is that this effect is unique. You know, if you're thinking of it as a way to cheat something really expensive into play, the fact that it's attached to a creature makes your whole plan very, very vulnerable. So I'm not sure, like, if you can actually build a Jhoira deck and expect to ever do your thing consistently. Like, they can interrupt you by just killing Jhoira at any time.
Yeah.
However, she is 2/3 for 2. She is a legend if you're putting Mox Ambers in or something else. 2/3 for 2 is actually pretty good in Pioneer. And if it's like a bonus that you occasionally just tap Jhoira for 6 or 8 mana or something, and like you have something to put in, I mean, that would be incredible. Which works great with Karn the Great Creator, right? You just grab your most expensive artifact, tap Jhoira, put in your 8-drop.
I think it's just a solid dream, but I sadly don't think Jhoira will see any play outside of Commander specifically.
Okay. How about this next one? Raff, Weatherlight Stalwart.
Beautiful 2-mana 1/3 human wizard, a blue and a white. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may tap 2 untapped creatures you control. If you draw a card. And for 5 mana, creatures you control get +1/+1 and vigilance.
Is it weird that I like this card?
I don't hate it, because if you have a lot of like trash creatures, Traveling Spectre, Birth of Meletis token, and stuff like that just floating around, it just adds draw a card to everything.
The deck building asks are significant, right? You do have to have Raff plus some other piece of material. Could be a Thraben Inspector, could be hard evidence or something like that. You need to have a bunch of creatures, and you need to also have instants and sorceries. But, I mean, getting a free draw for no additional mana investment, I think that's the big part. Like, the reason that you would even consider Raff is that, you know, he doesn't have to tap or anything like that.
Yeah.
You can do it the same turn you cast Raff.
And he's one of the creatures themselves you can tap, so something like turn 1 Traveling Spectre, turn 2 Raff, turn 3 any instant or sorcery nets you a card.
Right, so you're just sitting around blocking with Raff and whoever else, casting Consider and Opt as many times as you like. Getting a free card, I mean, that seems pretty good.
Yeah, it's an interesting card. I don't know if it will see play, but to say the least, it's at least intriguing, right? One of those cards you just have in the back of your mind thinking, maybe I can play this today.
Yeah, it's probably like a little bit too understated to actually like feel confident in, but I just want to give a shout out to his ability not being that bad.
Yeah. Followed by that, we have one of Magic's staple characters that has never had a face until now.
So the Raven Man, 1 and a black, legendary creature, human wizard. The Raven Man, I mean, I believe he first appeared in like these side stories for Liliana Vess.
Yes.
And every time a Liliana shows up and she gets a side story, she has this Raven Man appears to her in dreams. And what's cool is that they had concept art for the Raven Man years ago, and then when they finally made a Raven Man card, they just took that exact art. So it's like art we've seen forever.
Yeah.
And the art is very like arresting, right? This guy with amber golden eyes, and he's got impressive robes. People are wondering, like, who is this guy? Is it Urza? Is it, Leshrock?
And who is him?
Well, he's the Necromancer. I say that with like a little bit of disappointment. Like they had him identified as Limdul, which I was like, okay, I love Limdul, right? I remember that from Ice Age. Limdul the Necromancer.
Limdul's bold.
But then it turns out that Limdul was just like a vessel in a chain of vessels going back to some original Necromancer whose name is lost to time. And that's who the Raven Man is. So like Liliana would have become a vessel for the Raven Man in the same way that Limdul the Necromancer was a vessel for the original Necromancer.
So it's like the opposite of the lore in what's the name of the 5 of the creature that allows you to pay 1 of every color to cast any spell? This guy, like, the art is just him sitting down, like, floating.
Oh, Jhoira, Archmage Eternal.
You remember the flavor text in Jhoira? It's like the exact opposite of this.
Well, Jhoira is like the main character in the story for this set, so we're seeing a lot of Jhoira.
But the flavor text in the original card is something like, we expect the Jhoira name to be a title for like a chronology of mages that has been being passed down through the centuries. It's like a professor saying that, and then you have Jhoira the Eternal on the name.
Dread Pirate Roberts, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, there was one original Dread Pirate Roberts, but he confers the title on the next ship captain.
They assume it's that, but actually Jhoira is just eternal.
Right.
So it's like the opposite of here. We wanted him to be Limdul.
Limdul.
And it's actually just a passing title.
So what does the Raven Man do? Well, for 2 mana, 1 and a black, you get a 2/1 legendary human wizard. At the beginning of each end step, if any player discarded a card this turn, you get to create a 1/1 black bird with flying, and this creature can't block. That's a little disappointing. I don't know why they had to throw that can't block clause on there.
Yeah.
But 1/1 flying birds are good. You also get the ability to pay 3 and a black, tap the Raven Man. Each opponent discards a card, activate as a sorcery. That's not that bad, actually. I mean, as far as grinding goes, but I think the static ability is the big draw. Play this in some kind of discard deck, get a bunch of free birds. It's cool that it can be your discard, it can be their discard, so Blood Token does it, Thoughtseize does it. There's a lot of ways to trigger the Raven Man.
Okay, yeah. Especially if you have a way with something like Legend Shredder to make it, or like Chase Rain's Prodigy seems like the all-star, right? Turn 2 Raven Man into turn 2 Chase into turn 3 Raven Man plus Thoughtseize, get a trigger on your end step, on your opponent's turn, activate Chase, get another trigger.
Exactly what you just said, but replace Jace with Ledger Shredder and actually playable cards. I think with Ledger Shredder, yeah, we actually have something.
But you don't get it on your opponent's turn, like on turn 3. But yeah, it's better.
That card that you made fun of me for, Liliana's Steward, 1 mana, 1/2, tap, sack, opponent discards a card. You don't believe in Liliana's Steward. It's a great card. This is from my Tiny Bones deck when they finally print Tiny Bones into Modern. But Raven Man is like not as good as Tiny Bones, but he's still pretty cool.
Give us Tiny Bones! We want Tiny Bones!
Yeah, there's actually a lot of cards that like do work with this, right? Liliana the Veil, Ledger Shredder is probably the biggest one. Croxa, if you're doing that. If you want to resurrect a Waste Not deck, if you just want to play Gaia Reach Sanitarium, there's a bunch of ways to like get triggers off Raven Man, but the payoff is medium, right? It's not like a huge payoff.
Yeah, but turn 2 Raven Man into turn 3 Lily is at least really fun.
True. Yeah, it provides birds for you to sacrifice to their lilies.
Also, for everybody that lives in a bubble, Liliana the Veil has been confirmed for this set, which means if anyone here cares about the lore, the Veil is in possession of Name Misset and Depowered, but it implies that even if Liliana tries to escape and the deck has been deactivated, she's still bounded to it and like she's not free of what it has cost.
Good. We're rooting for you, Liliana. Next up, Benalish Sleeper, 1 and a white. Creature Phyrexian Human Soldier.
That's a beautiful type line.
3/1 for 2, so that's pretty good for a human. It has Kicker Black. When Benalish Sleeper enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, each player sacrifices a creature. So for 2 mana, you just get a random combat creature. For 3 mana, you get a Fleshbag Marauder. And that's actually pretty interesting. I mean, the base stats are good enough that if I'm just looking for some utility as I round out my humans, like, yeah, I could imagine that having access to this edict effect allows an aggressive humans deck to punch through in ways that like maybe they would have otherwise been stymied by a big blocker.
I'm just sad it's kicker and not like an ETB trigger.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah, with Extraction Specialist, it's for the best.
Right, so you can't re-kick it on a Blink or on an Extraction Specialist, right? So there's not that many shenanigans you can do with repeated triggers of Benalish Sleeper. If Lurrus was legal, you could kick it off that, but poor Lurrus. I think the thing that I'm most excited about for Benalish Sleeper is actually the return of cheap kicker costs, because I love Roost of Drakes, and they haven't shown me a blue card yet, but as soon as they print more for my Rooster Drake's Goblin Bushwhacker deck. Like, cheap cards with Kicker 1, I'm all about it.
Kicker 1 is all you need.
Kicker 1, exactly.
Followed by that, we have a card that might actually see play if Domain makes any amount of sense in Pioneer. Nishoba Brawler, 2 mana, star 3 trample, Cat Warrior, Domain. Brawler's power is equal to a number of basic land types among lands you control. So best case scenario is a 2 mana 5/3 trampler. The thing is, 2 mana 3/3 trample is already not that bad, and I think that's a really easy low setup for it. Like 1 Triumph is all you need.
So again, the Territorial Kavu disclaimer, we're not talking about Modern because Territorial Kavu has made all these domain cards obsolete.
We have Sire of Draco and Kau, which are both insanely better.
But in Pioneer, it's a little bit harder to get the domain, right? You got to have a fair bit of Triumphs and a lot of Shocklands. You have to tolerate having domain 3 or 4 for a while.
Consistently.
Is this enough of a payoff? Well, before Strangle was printed, I would have said, yeah, why not? Let's just take a chance on Nishoba Brawler, right? Not that many people are playing Fatal Push, so maybe I can get someone with a 5/3. But now that like Strangle has become a very popular card because of the existence of Ledger Shredder, it's like, okay, I'm not expecting this to live that long.
Where is Nakatl from?
Alara, I think the Nakatl is from Alara.
Okay. I was wondering how old it was.
So in Nishoba Brawler, I mean, yeah, 5/3 trample for 2 is okay. Like, trample is a very good ability, but I think it's not quite there.
No, I think if it was consistently a 5/3, it would be great. But it's more likely consistently a 3/3.
I think even if it was a 5/3, I mean, going back to that thing about, best case scenario, is it good enough? I'm actually not sure if a 5/3 trample for 2 is good enough.
So, I don't think it's a good payoff enough for Domain, but it's a good role player if there's a Domain deck. Like, if we get better Domain cards, this is a good role player in that deck.
If there's like a 5-color Domain that's like more control-ish, and then you side in these Brawlers to surprise them.
Yeah.
I mean, I like how it asks you to do something that you're not currently doing, right? No deck is trying to build this Domain mana base right now.
There's no Domain in Pioneer, and there's no upside for it yet. You do have the really bad card, the 2-mana enchantment that makes 1 land all land types.
Oh yeah, I like that one. Nylea's Presence.
Yeah, enigmatic staple Nylea's Presence.
Well, there you go.
So maybe there's some hope for it.
All right, next card is not very good, but it has a new counter type. It's called Impede Momentum, 1 and a blue sorcery. Tap target creature, and put 3 stun counters onto it. If a permanent with a stun counter would become untapped, remove 1 stun counter instead. And that's just reminder text. So stun counters are, I don't know, is like a new evergreen thing. In addition to all that, you get to scry 1 when you cast Impede Momentum. So you're freezing, or stunning, I guess we just have to call it stunning. Why fight it? Stunning their creature for 3 turns, and you get to scry on a spell. So if you're in some kind of spells matter thing, this could be like almost a removal spell that keeps your density high. It's like not that far off playable, but being a sorcery kind of sucks.
Yeah, if this was an instant, maybe there was some consideration for it, or at least drew a card instead of scry 1. But yeah, I think this is unplayable. I'm just interested in what they do with stun counters.
Yeah.
And after that, we go to a beautiful card. Marvelous. Some might even say dubious.
This has got to be your favorite card so far, right?
Oh yeah, by a mile. So we have the best Rabblemaster ever printed in Magic history. Squee, Dubious Monarch. 3 mana 2/2, haste, Goblin Noble, 1 red and 2. Whenever Squee Dubious Monarch attacks, create a 1/1 red Goblin token that's tapped and attacking. So it's the first Rabblemaster with haste. It doesn't pump its tokens, but it has haste, which means unless you get to attack 3 times, it's better than having non-haste. However, you could actually make sure that most of the time your Rabblemaster is going to get 3 hits in if it survives more than once. The upside here is it has escape. You may pay 4 and exile 4 other cards from your graveyard instead of paying Squee's mana cost. Not only has escape, it has uncounterable escape. Oh no, you cast it. It has just normal escape for some reason. It doesn't say escape because they cannot add mechanics from other sets, because they are not evergreen, etc, etc. It has escape 4, paying 4.
Yeah, so that's the immortal angle from Squee, although in the storyline he actually loses immortality, which is kind of sad.
I'm taking it... Yeah, he loses immortality, and I'm taking it like this is not Squee. It's just... I'm basing on nothing. Just the fact that Squee dies and he just gets replaced by another goblin. And that's the escape mechanic flavor. Like, the Dubious Monarch is dubious because it keeps getting swapped. Whenever it dies, it's just a new Squee.
So going back to the math, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that in a head-to-head against Goblin Rabblemaster, so Rabblemaster, same mana cost, makes a 1/1 that attacks. But Squee, when you cast it, is attacking for 3.
Yeah. Rabblemaster, I think, if my math is not wrong, is 1-5? No, 1-7? Right?
So on the second attack step, you're attacking with the Rabblemaster plus 2 goblins plus a Rabblemaster bonus. I mean, it scales nicely because of that plus X plus O clause.
Yeah, but I mean, it's 1 plus... So it's 1 into 7. Like 1 plus 6. This is 3 plus 4, which is always better if you get more damage on the start, of course. And on the third turn is where Rabblemaster actually gets ahead by an extra 2. So unless you get 3 turns with Rabblemaster, Squee is better. Not only because it's returnable, but also because it does the same amount of damage, but faster. And that's always better, right? Hitting for 3 on turn 3 is better than hitting for 1. Especially if your opponent plays something like a Planeswalker. This actually threatens a Liliana. Well, Rabblemaster doesn't.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering if the Rabblemaster comparison is a distraction, because what you're saying about 3 mana for 3/3 haste split across 2 bodies is actually super good. There's no other card that does that.
No, that's an insane effect. That's actually a really good card. And adding escape to that, which means you're not getting rid of it easily, is really good. Like, imagine playing against mono rare, and on the late game, they just go, Squee. You kill a Squee. Next turn, Squee.
I mean, at that stage, it's very, very similar to a Den of the Bugbear that never dies. And, you know, you've probably played against a bunch of Den of the Bugbear at this point, and you know just how devastating it is when that connects for damage.
It's exactly that.
Like, you just have to hope, like, oh gosh, I hope they don't activate this turn because I can't afford to take that hit. It's too much damage, and they get more material every turn. So, like, Squee, you'd have a ton of Den of the Bugbears now, and this one doesn't die. It brings the creature even without additional mana investment. If you just clear the path, you know, Squee turn 3, slam your Torbrand turn 4, and, like, you're dealing lethal damage, practically.
I just think it's really good. I think Squee is the best card spoiled by a mile. I think this card will see play in Modern, in Pioneer. Might even see some Fringe Legacy play in the decks that are playing Rabblemaster and such, because turn 1 Squee is devastating.
I like it. Yeah, I think you're right. The more we talk about it, the more I'm like, okay, this card is the nuts. This is better than Liliana of the Veil.
It's only the fact it has haste. People are sleeping on the fact Rabblmasters don't have haste. They attack you on the turn they come in, because they make it 1/1 on beginning of combat, and this makes it an attack. They don't have haste.
Okay, so we should spec hard on Squee. I mean, yeah, if it's going to see play as a 4 of in Modern, I mean, it's definitely going to be great in Pioneer.
In Pioneer, it's amazing. In Modern, I think it will see play. Not only that, I think you will start, on release, you will see a lot of Goblins players, because people miss Goblins playing this.
So there's a card called Battlecry Goblin, which was, I think, from one of those recent sets. It's like a bomb limited card. This card is absolutely insane, Battlecry Goblin, but you just never play against it because goblins are bad. Once you start having to face Battlecry Goblins, you're going to be like, what the heck? You know, how do they print this card? And like, Battlecry Goblin into Squee is a great start. All you need is one more creature to trigger the pack tactics.
Yeah. And you just start getting swarmed. And I think maybe a more aggressive version of Goblins might see play. Like, imagine Squee into next turn a Goblin Lord. Or turn 3 a Lord into turn 4 a Squee plus something. And you just get swarmed. Like, Squee with a Lord attacks for 5 the turn it enters.
Yeah. Alright, I'm in. You've sold me on this. Let's call up GoatBots and place an order for 1,000 copies of Squee Dubious Monarch. Okay. We'll offer to trade them our 1,000 paid lands that we bought earlier this week.
I will give you 1,000 paid lands for 18 Squees.
Alright, somewhat less exciting card. Ajani Sleeper Agent. Honorary 3-drop because Ajani is a completed Planeswalker. This is the completed mechanic that we first saw on Tamiyo, the completed Sage. If you choose to pay the Phyrexian mana, you get to cast Ajani for 1 fewer mana. You have to pay 2 life instead. And when you do that, you get 2 fewer loyalty counters. So you basically have 2 modes. You get Ajani for 4, in which case he comes down with 4 loyalty, or you get Ajani for 3, in which he comes down with 3 loyalty.
2 loyalty.
Sorry. 2 loyalty, thank you.
It would enter my considerations with 3. And at first sight, I thought it was 3.
Yeah, so 3 mana Planeswalkers are always worth a close look, so let's just think about the 3 mana mode. So you're paying 1 green, white, and 2 life, you get a 2 loyalty Ajani, and he has 3 abilities. The first one, reminiscent of Domri Rod. +1, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature or a Planeswalker card, you get to put it into your hand. Otherwise, put it on the bottom. Okay, so this is better than Domri in 2 important ways. 1, it gets Planeswalkers, so you just have, you don't get stuck if you reveal a second Ajani. A higher percentage of your deck is eligible for this ability. And 2, if you can't reveal it, if it's just like a land, you have the option to put it on the bottom, so it's card selection, whereas with original Domri, you just had to look really embarrassed and put your card back on top of your deck.
This can be much better read as Scry 1 if it's a creature or Planeswalker, draw it. And that makes it sound better than it sounds when you read it, like the full-on text.
Oh, I like that. Okay. Yeah, so that ability does seem powerful.
Yeah, that's not that bad in a 3-mana Planeswalker. Not bad at all.
The downside is that the next 2 abilities are not that great as I'm reading them. The next one is a -3. So -3 means that you can't actually use this if you paid the Phyrexian cost, because you only have 2 loyalty initially. -3, distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among up to 3 target creatures. They gain vigilance until end of turn. So distribute them means if you only have 1 creature, that's fine. You can beef it up +3/+3. Pretty good even. But it's not this doesn't scream to me this is worth a card. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, that -3 ability. And it's definitely not a removal effect.
Yeah. The fact it's a 3-mana Planeswalker makes me always consider it in Pioneer. 3 mana. It's a really niche spot for Planeswalkers. Every single Planeswalker that's playable tends to be 3 or 4. Ignoring Bredan 6, which is an insult to nature. But that was a mistake. That just happened. I just actually really like Ajani.
Finally, the ultimate is -6.
Oh, it's so bad.
You get an emblem with whenever you cast a creature or Planeswalker spell. Drumroll, please. Target opponent gets 2 poison counters. I don't know what they were doing with this. They were we got to give him an ultimate, and it has to be a really bad ultimate.
It has to be Phyrexian related and bad. I know, 2 counters, 2 infect counters. It could have been 4. Also, Dan, we got an additional... Wow. Oh, that's bad. I got excited for nothing. So, additional wave of spoilers just came in. Oh, that's 2 mana 1/1 flash. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 creature token. White and colorless. Is that the best Racial Alarm effect ever printed?
1/1 flash for 1 and a white. ETB, make a token?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a human?
Yep. Human soldier. That's not bad.
That's okay. Yeah.
I don't hate it. And then we have Spellseeker with a lot of problems at home. 4 mana 3/3, enter the battlefield, search your library for an instant or sorcery card with mana value 1.
Okay.
They could have made it cost 3. 3 mana 2/2. Come on. Give me the sauce.
Does it work with Ephemerate the way you want it to?
Yes.
Okay, so that's not nothing.
Yeah, and 4 mana 4/4. When it enters into play, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal an equipment or vehicle, put them in your hand. Equipment you control have equip 1, and vehicles you control have crew 1.
What are the names of these freshly revealed cards?
So we have Astor, Bearer of Blades, which is the 4 mana 4/4 Boros that looks 7, put as an equipment or vehicle into your hand, and they have crew or equip 1, which is gonna be the shell of a really bad deck we're gonna brew with Parhelion and Colossus Hammer, but that's a problem for the future. Micromancer, which is Spellseeker but bad. Resolute Reinforcements is a card I absolutely love, which is the best Racial Alarm. And Lightning Strike, which is Lightning Strike.
Okay. All right, so with those unscheduled spoilers, let's go back to the actual spoilers.
I know, but I just saw them and I was like, oh, spoilers.
Raise the alarm on a creature.
I think it's actually really good. Like, we're laughing, but I love it.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a new meta where everyone's going to be playing the Benalish Sleeper that has kickers to become a Flashback Marauder, and everyone's going to be playing the next card, Liliana of the Veil, reprinted into Standard, reprinted into Pioneer. We talked about this in our last mailbag segment. Someone had asked, what if Innistrad block were in Pioneer? And, Liliana of the Veil is one of the cards that you think of as being iconic from Innistrad. Is that too powerful? I think we all agreed that, no, it's not too powerful for Pioneer. I think it's going to be pretty good, but not too powerful.
I think we all agree on that. I have seen people cry that it's going to be busted, but I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, it's definitely not busted. I'll just come out and say that right now. It is going to be very good, like the people who are leaning too hard in the other direction and being like, no, it's too risky against Arclight Phoenix and stuff. Like, it's risky, but, it's not the end of the world. Anytime you can play Liliana, get a clean -2 and empty their battlefield, like you're way ahead. It's hard to come back from that unless they have Squee. then you're screwed.
I'm not gonna stop talking about Squee. Like, I'm gonna play that Squee, love it or not.
So we're definitely going to test this card a lot. So I think everyone's going to be trying it in Pioneer.
Yeah.
The argument I've heard most persuasively is that, the current flavors of red-black, which is one of the top decks, if not the top deck in Pioneer, plays Fable of the Mirror Breaker as its best 3-drop, and that Fable is emblematic of like the current phase of Magic that we're in which everything is high resource. You just can never run anyone out of resources because they're all playing these cards that are worth 3 or 4 cards at once, and that it's just better to increase your own resources instead of trying to whittle the opponent down, which is what Liliana of the Veil does. So it's almost like the soul of red-black is going to be decided in this battle between Lily and Fable.
Yeah, I think Fable is better than Lily.
You're killing me, Mort.
I mean,
you're killing me.
Maybe that's just the new age, but
it's possible.
Fable is always a 2-for-1. Have you ever seen Fable not be a 2-for-1?
It's always a 2-for-1, at least, if not much more.
I mean, it has 2 sides you have to fix plus card selection.
But it's not disruptive, and Liliana is super disruptive. She's like the most disruptive, most interactive card you can imagine.
Yeah, but the rest of the deck is really disruptive.
Sure.
That's,
no, it's true.
I think Fable is great in the colors, like in Rakdos, because you have the push, the Thoughtseize, the Dures, the Goblins doing the interaction. Eventually, you need something that's gonna put you ahead after all the interaction.
Yeah, so things to keep in mind about Liliana in Pioneer is that a lot of decks are playing stuff that uses their own graveyard, right? So
plus into Phoenix.
Grease Fang, right? They're happy to like discard the Parhelion or whatever. A lot of decks are playing Delve. So you shouldn't expect too much out of the +1. There's always the risk, right? If Liliana is everywhere, I'm going to be playing all kinds of Nullhide Ferox decks. You can play Locked On Smiter if that's your jam. I know David loves Orvar, the All form. These are options in case Liliana becomes super good. Maybe it's time for that fight rigging Nullhide Ferox decks we were talking about to like finally
pop off.
I should go buy 1,000 Nullhide Feroxes on GoatBox. Just
also
get ahead of the curve.
Based on the previous spoilers, just tiny cry from Mord. The Bad Spellseeker is a 3/3 instead of a 2/3, which breaks my heart because if it was a 2/3, I would actually play it. Just so I could recruit her for Ephemerate.
Oh my gosh.
And now I can't, and life is sad.
So we expect greatness from Liliana of the Veil, but, it's a tough new world out there. We wish her the best.
I expect it to be good, but I'm just waiting for the moment everybody's playing Liliana, and I can just play Celestial Little Kids and play Loxodon Spider.
Exactly.
And just my opponent passes and I go, Loxodon Spider! Yay! Did I ever tell you the story of the worst Colligan's command in Magic's history?
The worst Colligan's command in Magic's history.
Yeah. So, a Rakdos player against a Celestia player. Rakdos attacks with a 3/3, opponent blocks with Loxodon Spider, and then he goes for Colligan's command, 2 damage discard the Celestia player's last card. Of course, Celestia's player's last card is Wildly Fleece, so Loxodon Spider becomes a 6/6, it doesn't die to the Colligan's command, and he got a free 4/4 that's gonna attack for 10 next turn with the Loxodon Spider.
Oh my god.
That's the future we're in for, boys.
Yeah. All right, next card up, Zura Eternal Schemer. This one I don't think has the juice to make it constructed, but it's a cool card.
How does it work? Oh, okay, so let's read it first before I ask the double question.
White, blue, black, 1/4 human wizard with flying, just like the original Zura, but 1 mana cheaper. Static text, enchantment creatures you control have Death Touch, Lifelink, and Hexproof, so they get a nice bonus, all your enchantment creatures, whatever those may be. As many Reflection of Kiki-Jikis as you happen to have now have Hexproof. That's actually kind of cool. He also has an activated ability for 1 and a white, target non-aura enchantment you control, becomes a creature in addition to its other types, and has base power toughness equal to its mana value. That's a permanent animation, it's not temporary. So if you had, like some ley lines in play or something, Zura can animate those.
So how does Zur work with Dress Down?
The podcast has just crashed. The brains cannot compute this question. Oh my god.
Layers over layers of crap. How does Zur work with... Oh, so Chatstrom, I'm not gonna add you, I'm just gonna wait for you to listen to this eventually and answer my question. I'm not gonna go look for answers, I'm gonna just trust implicitly that you're gonna reply to me around Saturday or Sunday.
It should be impossible, right? You should never be able to activate Zur when Dress Down is in play. That's my hope. Because Dress Down just blanks Zur, right? So anytime Dress Down is in play, Zur does nothing?
Yeah, we can just have hope.
Okay.
Somehow it can happen.
We pray for the judges out there that that's how it works, but who knows the truth?
Like, we just remove the text from Dress Down, transform it, then give it back, and then we just crash into an endless symbiosis of chaos.
Yeah. All right, next card up is one that I think is a little more promising. It's Braid's Arisen Nightmare. Braids comes in at 3 mana now, 1 black, legendary creature Nightmare for a 3/3. So that's not bad, right? She's gone from a 4 mana 2/2 to a 3 mana 3/3.
Sounds like straight upgrades.
Her ability now triggers on your end step instead of your upkeep. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. She'll take anything. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with a card you sacrificed. For each opponent who doesn't do that, who doesn't sacrifice, they lose 2 life, you draw a card. So in multiplayer, you could potentially be drawing a ton of cards. Braids is very cool in multiplayer. Let's just focus on one-on-one though. So on the surface, it's a Punisher effect. Punisher is when your opponent has a choice of pick their own poison, and we found those cards are really bad and constructed. I would like to make the case, however, that Braids is not truly a Punisher because you have the choice of what to sacrifice first, and you can just choose to not let them have the choice, right? Take the choice away from them, sacrifice a permanent of a type that they don't have, and then you're guaranteed your Dark Confidant.
I think that's the best way to see this card. I don't think you can ever see... Punisher effects don't work. Punisher, we know in Magic, punishing doesn't work. So we have to see this as a card that you can sacrifice to draw a card, drain your opponent, and sometimes it's gonna suck against Rakdos Sacrifice, for example. Because you're gonna sacrifice an artifact and you're gonna sacrifice a black.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if the opponent matches all your types, you're gonna be disappointed in Braids.
So I think you have to read this card as 3 mana 3/3. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice a type. You may sacrifice a non-land permanent, unless it's gonna be non-land permanent to your opponent loses your life and you draw a card. Because if it's in the late game, you sacrifice a land, your opponent's gonna sacrifice a land.
So it's almost like the opposite of original Braids, right? Original Braids, you want to make both players sacrifice lands. This Braids tricks you into that. It says, hey, if you want to sack your land and have your opponent sack their land, you can do it, but this is just not going to happen. It's not going to work because of that Punisher effect. So just treat this as a Dark Confidant that drains them, and I think you're going to have much better results. It's like a card draw engine, attacks their life total, and gives you a sacrifice outlet. So if you want to sack your Implemented Combustion, your Unlucky Witness, Braids is another outlet for all of that. I do think Braids is better than it looks.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's better than it looks. I think it looks good and it's good.
Oh, okay.
I think you just have to analyze it on the side of this not being a punishing taxing effect, but rather a card advantage sack outlet effect. This is not original Braids. This is not I'm trying to devastate my opponent. It's I want to get ahead on resources kind of card.
Core Vault for 3.
It's Corval at home.
Yeah.
But I would see this in a Corval deck just because of how useful it would be. Like, that's what I'm looking for, like, rather than the other braids.
Now we go on to 4 mana, and our first 4-drop is one that I really like. Soul of Windgrace. Jund, legendary creature, 1 black, red, green, cat avatar, 5/4. So these are decent stats. I mean, I played Ziatora's Envoy at the same mana cost, which was terrible. I have a little more hope for Soul of Windgrace. When Soul of Windgrace enters the battlefield or attacks, so we got a Titan clause, we have a Titan alert. Whenever that happens, you may put a land card from any graveyard, yours or theirs, onto the battlefield tapped under your control. That's pretty good.
So this is Omnath at home, Omnath at Shan.
Jundnath?
Shannath.
Am I crazy? Like, I think this card is actually pretty good. It has more text, but the rest of the text is not that good. The rest of the text is, he has 3 different activated abilities. They each require paying mana, discarding a land, and getting some minor effect. That's all fine, but I feel like the real strength of Soul of Windgrace is like 4 mana, slam it, ramp yourself, attack, ramp yourself. Card advantage and ramp is very, very dangerous.
Card advantage. So this accomplishes that great effect that it's mana advantage because you're getting back lands, and then every land you draw that's gonna become useless, you just give it the extra use. That's how you tend to. I don't think you want to play this in like a ramp deck, but rather you play these, you get your lands from the graveyards as you attack or play, and then you use the lands you draw as a cycle effect for 2 mana, or to protect it, or to gain life.
So you don't think it's a ramp card. You think that I should just top out the curve at 4 so that all my extra lands can be discarded to the Soul of Windgrace.
I think this is more like a shunt card. I see this more like a shunt card than a romp card.
Okay. That could be true. I mean, I feel like it's like a mini Primeval Titan. I don't know. I just can't get past that. I feel like it's a Primeval Titan.
Yeah, maybe. But I like the card. I don't think it's bad. I mean, 4 mana 5/4 ramp on ETB is pretty good.
So you have to have something in your graveyard first. There's a few different ways to do that. Fabled Passage, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, a lot of fables, discarding lands. In Modern, obviously, you have your fetch lands, you have their fetch lands. Maybe this is good enough in Modern, I'm actually not sure.
I don't think so, but it's at least something to take into consideration. I don't think this is a card you can just ignore. I think this is a card you just forget about and eventually it crushes you.
Okay. Do you want to talk about this saga?
Yeah. So, the Phasing of Zhalfir. A really interesting way to introduce a new mechanic with a really skill-intensive card. So, we get the mechanic Read Ahead. So, when you play it, it's a mechanic only for sagas, and when the saga enters the battlefield, you choose on which step it enters the battlefield. So, we have 4 mana Enchantment Saga, 2 blue, 2 any color. First and second step, you may face out a non-land permanent that doesn't face in until the saga leaves play. Followed by, third step, destroy all creatures. For each creature, its owner gets a 2/2 black Phyrexian token. So, Mass Pongify. So, how does this work? When you play this, you have 3 alternatives. You play it on the third step immediately and you have a 4 mana Mass Pongify. You play it on the second step, so you get a turn to protect one of your creatures, and then the next turn, when your creature face out, you make a Wrath, or on first step, and you set up for a long time Wrath.
This is such a mind bend of a card.
Yeah, it's insane.
Usually when they have like, oh, it's a new mechanic, it's a variant of kicker. I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'll just figure it out. But like this new mechanic of Read Ahead is super, super complex. Like it's simple in what your choice is. You just play your saga and choose what chapter you start on. But it's going to play out so differently, right? Like the fact that chapter 3 is a Wrath or Mass Pongify. What do you call it? Mass Pongify?
Mass Pongify.
Yeah. And then the first 2 abilities, the first 2 chapters either target your stuff or their stuff. It's non-land permanents, doesn't have to be creatures, right? But it probably should be if you want to work with the Wrath, but it doesn't have to, right? If you just want to remove a problematic planeswalker for 2 turns, Phasing of Zhalfir does that too. Or just for 1 turn, right? You can start on chapter 2 if you want to. I mean, it's super, super complex.
Sorry, I'm just noticing the pattern in the staff is extremely similar to Mishra's Bubble.
What, you think the artwork is Mishra's Bubble?
No, that's Teferi's staff. But the art in the lower part is extremely similar to the Mishra bubble.
No. Isn't that just Zhalfir?
Maybe.
I
might just be going insane, nothing new.
As far as art conspiracies go, it's like, is this or Lord of the Rings? You gotta pick one. You can only have one art conspiracy at a time.
You have Lord of the Rings. I have the Fate is actually Mishra.
Okay. I like that one. Yeah, so I don't see an obvious home or use for this yet, but I think it's because my mind is like not willing to process it yet.
Yeah. So it's weird. It's a Wrath effect on mono blue, so all of a sudden it's strange.
Next up, the big bad of the set, Sheoldred, the Apocalypse. Our fourth Phyrexian Praetor.
Why is it so bad?
2 black. Legendary creature, Phyrexian Praetor, 4/5 death touch. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life.
Why is such a magnificent title like Sheoldred the Apocalypse gets wasted on such a terrible card?
It's because the rest of the set is so juiced. They had to...
It's worse than every other single card we have read so far. Like, Sur has better text than this, and nobody freaking cares about Sur the Enchanter. Squee is better than this. They could have given this text to Squee. Like, sorry, the other way around. Sheoldred could have had Squee's text being a 3-mana 2/2 haste, because its legs, in the flavor, its legs just spread around, so they could have literally made it make a 1/1 Phyrexian whenever it attacks, and it would have been more interesting than whatever the fuck this is.
I don't disagree. Sheoldred is bad. The point I do want to make is that I know some people will hear this and be like, well, but wait, there's a combo you can do with, Greed or Gristle, who knows what else. Like, there's probably some combos that exist. Here, you have to be disciplined when you're brewing. The fact is that Sheoldred costs 4, does not have an ETB, so Sheoldred by herself is not a good card.
Yeah.
She rewards you for drawing cards. Like, the reward is minor, and drawing cards, you already wanted to do that.
At least you go infinite with Griselbrand.
So if you're thinking I can combine Sheoldred with something else to make a combo, like, well, you're talking about combining a bad card with something that is likely also a bad card to make a combo based on you drawing cards, which, like, you already wanted to do anyway. Like, it's just not good.
I mean, my problem with Sheoldred is not her being bad, it's her being boring.
She is kind of boring.
Because the original creators are not powerful cards because they're really expensive, but you look at boring clicks, making sure your opponent's lands on the top. You look at the original Sheoldred, which is a sack outlet, you're making your opponent's sacrifice plus draw, Elishnorn as a mass Y plus burst, original. Like, all the new creators have been boring.
She does feel kind of like AI generated, right? Like, yeah, machine learning.
The other predators are at least slightly interesting, like boring clicks, double counters, so it was not as powerful, it was not as magnificent as the others, as the original one, but it was fun. Urabrask at least was interesting in that it attacks your opponent's hand, and it was like a 5/4/4 flyer haste, and it had like text. This is just boring.
Yeah.
And Shooting Actions was also like all of them were like smaller versions of the original, but at least interesting. This one just has less text. This could be a common.
that's devastating.
This could be an uncommon. Just look at the text.
She should be legal in that Pauper EDH format.
Yeah, like this could be a 4-mana 4/4 with that exact text, and would be an uncommon. That's the problem. She's boring.
Yeah, I mean, the strength is whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. That's pretty good, but it's not good enough. Like, not for...
I mean, it's even worse than the Esper creature from Capena that made your opponent lose life whenever you drew a card.
All right. Sorry, Sheoldred, please don't complete us for saying these nasty things about you.
And she's so huge. Look at the art. It's like a huge freaking ass worm with spreadable legs that just transform into mini creatures. And instead it's like a sad 4-mana 4/5 that doesn't even make a token.
Alright, next card up is also pretty boring, but I think this one I would at least consider playing. It's Archangel of Wrath. The artwork shows an angel who looks an awful lot like a Chroma to me. She's got that same color scheme. But this is not a legend, this is just a regular angel. 2 white, 3/4, flying, lifelink. Double kicker, right? Kicker black and or kicker red. So you can kick it once, twice, or 0 times as you like. When Archangel of Wrath enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, it deals 2 damage to any target. If it was double kicked, it deals another 2 damage to any target. So that's potentially for 6 mana, for 2 white, black, red, you're getting your 3/4 flying lifelink, and 2 shocks pointed at any targets you like. Can be the same target, can be different targets.
David says it in a magnificent way, the terrible Bone Crusher. 7 total power toughness, 2 damage for 5 mana. He's only kind of wrong.
I mean, it's definitely a lot less useful.
Like, I'm wondering, where am I playing these 5-drop instead of, like, the original 5 mana 5/5 lifelink angels? With first strike and such.
Well, here's the thing, right? I mean, it's cheaper, right? So it is a somewhat plausible 4-drop, 3/4 flying lifelink. The comparison to Bone Crusher breaks down a little bit in the sense that you do gain life off the kickers, right? So because the Archangel is the one dealing the damage, the lifelink clause applies. So you're actually getting to do 2 little mini helixes, potentially like an 8-point swing just from the kicker when you cast Archangel of Wrath, potentially a 3-for-1 if you kill 2 things. The ceiling is very high if you talk yourself into it. However, this is, we're talking about 4, 5, or 6 mana. You're asking a lot for your cards. Why would I be doing this? Maybe I've talked myself into like an Angel Tribal, maybe with Jhoira, Font of Hope. Maybe I've finally built that Kalia Zenith Seeker deck that I've been talking about for years. Archangel of Wrath could fit there. I think as like a Mardu Jundi mid-range card, it's so-so. But it's not terrible. It's not just like worse than Bone Crusher, set it aside.
Okay.
I think. But yeah, I don't expect to see a lot of this card. Just don't rule it out. Like, it actually is useful.
I mean, if you're playing like a creature deck and your opponent casts this, all of a sudden gains 4 life, kills 2 of your creatures and gets a 3/4 flying lifelinker, I can see life running out of your eyes. But still,
Okay. All right, talk about this next one here.
So we have Kalitas at home. Nemata. Guardiana Primigenia. Primeval Guardian. Primigenia is not primeval. But okay. Like, that's not the correct translation. Legendary creature, 3-fold, reach. If a creature opponent controls would die, instead exile it. When they do, create a 1/1 Saproling green token. So Kalitas that makes 1/1 Saprolings instead of zombies has reach instead of lifelink. However, you may pay green and sacrifice a Saproling to give it +2/+2, or you may pay 1 and a black, sacrifice 2 Saprolings to draw a card.
I think Kalitas is better on the whole. Like, if I had to choose. However,
unless I'm playing Saprolings already, like for some godforsaken reason.
Yeah, I suppose so. That is true.
I mean, previous Dominaria, I said original Dominaria, talking about the Dominaria from 4 years ago, why can't be killed by all the boomers now. Original Dominaria 4 years ago gave us the bad Saproling Lord and such.
Which card was that?
2 mana 2/2 Saproling Lord, literally.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'm sticking to my guts that original Dominaria is Dominaria United. Sorry, what's the name of the Dominaria from a few years ago? I'm sticking with my guts that is original Dominaria. Everything before that didn't exist. Oh, it's just plain old Dominaria? Okay, that's original Dominaria.
I mean, I think you're right. I think that was the first Dominaria set, in my opinion, because they tried to like make a Dominaria lore for the first time.
Oh, Richard Garfield was on that set for the first time since Sinistral.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so weird about like all the nostalgia of this set, is that it doesn't feel nostalgic to me because we just did this a few years ago.
Yeah,
they did the nostalgia tour 4 years ago.
It does feel nostalgic for me because I didn't feel nostalgia in the original one because I was just started, so I didn't know anything about what I was seeing.
I see.
So this is the first time I feel nostalgia about what I'm reading because this is the first time I can actually correlate it to something.
Yeah. Story choices aside, one thing I have noticed is that David is often like showing me a mid-range list and he's got like 1 Kalitas on the sideboard and everything else on the deck is Jegantha compatible. Is 1 Kalitas on the sideboard enough to give up Jegantha?
No.
For me, it isn't, so I usually just cut the Kalitas and directly replace it with Jegantha. Nemata does not make you choose, right? Nemata just works with Jegantha, that's good. Works with Niv if you're doing that.
Yeah, but Kalitas has lifelink, which I think is a huge difference. Lifelink is a lot better than Reach.
Well, it's not. it's like a little bit better. You need a lifelink to make up for the fact that it can't block the Ledger Shredders and Phoenixes, which Namada just naturally does. So Namada also stabilizes you a decent amount. The two different options in the sacking, right? Sack to pump, it's not that good, but sack 2 saplings to draw a card is actually pretty good. So yeah, Namada is good enough. It's not going to be a huge build around card, but it's good enough for decks that want to Kalitas.
Mm-hmm. I agree with the fact it's better than not having Giganta, but it's tough. Its sacrifice abilities are a lot better than Kalitas, that's for sure.
Alright, we're getting into the 5 drops now, so these cards are unlikely to see any play, but we gotta mention Solkanar, because Solkanar the Swamp King, what a card. I mean, beautiful artwork.
The Swamp King?
The original Solkanar from Legends, and I think it was in Time Spiral Remastered, or Time Shifted, whatever. Sweet card, 5/5, Swamp Walk, Gain a Life, etc. They bring back Solkanar, same mana cost, 2, blue, black, red, 5/5. Instead of having Swamp Walk, he has a trigger that triggers on your end step and gives you...
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff.
So this is, what if we made... what's the name of the pact?
Demonic Pact, yeah.
So what if we made Demonic Pact, but we have to make the effects so weak because the downside is not actually losing the game. So we have to make sure the downside from Demonic Pact was low enough that you did. So they made sure that the payoff for the upside of it is not strong enough that with a downside that's only give your opponent this creature, you would play it. So we had a 5 mana 5/5 at the beginning of your end step. Choose one of the 4 modes, which is, and it has to be one that hasn't been chosen. Draw a card, drain 2 life to your opponent, deal 3 damage to up to one other target creature or planeswalker, and then return it, exile it and return it under your opponent's side. Is this a good card? I don't think so. What I do know is that David is gonna give 1,000,000 ticks to the Magic Gods. And I think Danny's gonna agree with me on that David is just gonna waste a myriad of ticks on it. Why? Because it reminds him of his childhood 94 years ago. And it's Grixis. It's like a great card for Grixis medium.
Needs Swamp Walk though, TBH.
You just needed to have...
I mean, if you're not going to give me an ETB, you got to give me a Swamp Walk. Throw me a bone.
Wait, oh no, it just happened. It happened. It has happened. What if we enchant Sur with One with the Stars?
Is this a brand new spoiler happening in real time?
No. One with the Stars is a 4-mana enchantment from Theros that makes a card an enchantment that loses all other card types. So, from new Theros, 4-mana enchantment permanent is an enchantment that loses all other card types. So you transform Sur into an enchantment that's no longer a creature.
So you're trying to give Zur hexproof, lifelink, and death touch. This is the goal.
Yeah. Giving Sur hexproof.
Yeah.
There has to be a better way.
You have a 1-power lifelink, death touch, hexproof. Yeah.
There has to be a better way to make Sur an enchantment.
All right, another 5-drop here. This one is not playable again because it doesn't have an ETB, but it's kind of cool. It's Defiler of Dreams, 3 blue, 4/3 Phyrexian Sphinx. It gives all of your blue permanent spells the option to pay Phyrexian mana. That is to say, as an additional cost to cast your blue permanents, you can pay 2 life, and for each 2 that you pay, you reduce their cost by a blue pip. It also says whenever you cast a blue permanent spell, draw a card. So there's payoff here. David points out that Moonsnare prototype is actually pretty sweet with Defiler of Dreams. Just pay it for 2 life, draw a card. But, I mean, it's just too expensive. 5 mana is too much.
I mean, if we find a way to end life, we can just go off with like stuff like Mausoleum Wanderer and the Bird. That's a white and a blue mana, and just like 1,000,000 1 blue mana permanents.
Oh, I see. So it just keeps chaining, right? You're casting them for free.
And you just try to chain. And you just like make a pseudo storm of like 8-9 spells consistently.
I mean, that's so tempting, but is there any way to get this into play faster?
My problem is, if the Defiler of Dreams had been an artifact, which means I could cheat into it with... Wait, blue steel. Blue Steel.
For the hypothetical artifact version that doesn't exist.
No. It doesn't have to be an artifact version regardless. But in Blue Steel, a lot of the cards already accomplish this.
But you can't. I mean, it's just too expensive. You can't.
I'm down to make bad decisions.
How are you going to get this into play?
I'm going to play for Monster Prototype alongside other blue base RAM.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Next is Sphinx of Clear Skies. Ohutai Batbar. 5 mana 5/5 Sphinx, 2 blue and 3 any color for a 5/5 flying ward 2 with domain. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. An opponent separates them into 2 piles. You put 1 pile into your hand, the other into your graveyard. So whenever it connects, it makes a mini Factor Fiction or a big Factor Fiction, depending on your amount of card types.
I do like this idea that Sphinxes are Factor Fiction tribal. There was Unesh, the Cryo-Sphinx Sovereign, had that ability. The question here is like how good is Ward 2, right? Because everything else is a fail, right? You just can't have... This is not an ETB, right? It's whenever it deals combat damage.
If this had been a 4-drop and then just scale appropriately, I would have loved this card. I think you could just play Ohutai whenever you would play this.
Right. Yeah, you need actual hexproof. And now we'll just die to Liliana of the Veil or that Benalish Sleeper agent, so... Not feeling the Sphinx of Clear Skies. We move on.
We move on to the World Spell. 7 mana saga with Radha Hair. I didn't notice this had Radha Hair on my first sight. That's interesting. First and second step, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-saga permanent card from them and put it into your hand. On the third step, put up to 2 non-saga permanent cards from your graveyard onto the battlefield. The non-saga part is so this doesn't loop itself infinitely. Because if you have a wall spell, you got like 2 wall spells plus a Mock Fanatic would be lethal. So that's the non-saga part.
Oh, because you have to keep recycling them somehow.
No, you have Radha Hair. So we just go to third.
But they don't come back from the graveyard.
Oh, it's from your hand to the battlefield, yeah. Yeah, you have to fire your cycle. Yeah, I don't think this card is great, like, at all. Unless you use this as a really bad, like, through the breach and put into play something like Xenagos plus Emrakul in a 3-mana combo, which requires 7 mana.
So it reminds me of Tooth and Nail, right? Tooth and Nail costs 7 and then 2 to entwine. And the Chapter 3 is very, very similar to that clause on Tooth and Nail. Just put 2 things into play. Tooth and Nail, if you entwined it, paid 9, you got to tutor up the other 2 things, and you just like immediately combo.
Yeah. I don't think this is really good.
Whereas World Spell actually does find 2 things, right? You have Chapter 1 and 2 if you want them to dig for pieces, and then you get that Tooth and Nail on turn 3, you just put the things into play, right? So you drop in your Emrakul and your Xenagos. Or if you already have them in hand, you just immediately go to it. It's interesting to like play in that space again, I'll just say that much. But 7 mana is a little bit too much, I think.
Yeah, I think 7 mana. If this had been like a 5 or 6 mana spell, and you could like feasibly make your own Tooth and Nails because at the look 7 you start finding the payoffs, like on a correct amount of previous turns, I would like it. But then if you make it 5, this is just strictly better through a breach. I'm sorry, sneak attack.
Strictly better sneak attack? That's...
I mean, it's not strictly better. It's not strictly better, but instead of putting 1 Emrakul with haste, you get to put 2 permanents and they stick. So if this had been 5 mana, it would be a card on competition with sneak attack. Because it is also permanents, it's not even creatures. You could put like Bola Citadel plus Earthflux Reservoir.
Okay. Well, you got my attention, but yeah. This is a Dreamer's card.
This is a Dreamer's card.
Jank Brew kind of card.
Yeah. And then we have... Oh, so really fun, because now that we talk about that, I lost 2 Minotaurs today on Pioneer.
Which card?
Minotaurs. No, I lost to that tribe. So, there's a card that's not from Teros itself. It's like the same place as Scorball. You know, that weird card not in the set but legal?
Oh yeah, it's like from a supplementary deck, but it's technically standard legal, so therefore Pioneer legal.
8 mana sorcery, look for 4 Minotaurs, put them into play.
Death Bellow Warcry.
Yes, I lost to that. They hit me for 42 on turn 4.
So they had, what, Ironcrag Feet and something else?
Yep. No, they went turn 2, Cleansing Wildfire. Turn 3, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Turn 4, kill me with... It was devastating. I almost cried. Not gonna lie. It hurt. I was not expecting to lose to Minotaurs today on my Pioneer League. But alas, life is cruel and sometimes it happens. Also, 8 mana win the game for a single card was interesting. Because it has no deck building restriction.
Except filling your deck with Minotaurs.
Just
and
fine.
You gotta play some bad ones. I mean, there's some sketchy Minotaurs in there.
No, but 2 of them were the ones, the land one.
Which one?
The one that's a land, the Akroan Warrior.
But doesn't it have to be different names? You can have one can be the Akum Warrior.
Yeah, they went for one of that, one from the Rakdos, one that's the important one because it gives +2/+0 to every other attacking Minotaur, one that gave haste, and X other Minotaur. But the thing is, it was playing Cleansing Wildfire, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, 6 mana Chandra, Vessel of whatever it is, the one that you sacrifice the enchantment. Really fun bad deck.
Vessel of Volatility.
Yes. Something that would come out of a Psycho's mind. Yeah, I got crushed, was devastating emotionally, almost cried myself to sleep.
That sounds like a big day for you, Lord.
Yeah, it was tough.
All right, last card we'll do for this installment is Herd Migration. This is a 7-drop, but it's actually a 2-drop because you can channel it effectively. 1 and a green, discard the Herd Migration to search your library for a basic land card, reveal that, put it into your hand, then gain 3 life. So that effect is functional but slow, right? It's like basic land cycling plus 3 life. The 3 life matters. It means you're not falling too far behind, but you're also not getting ahead. And I think that's the crux of it here. If this actually put a land into play, I would pay 3 for it even. But at 2 mana, not putting a land into play, it's like, probably not. That's the 2 mana mode. The 7 mana mode, which is the normal mode, is 6 and a green, sorcery, create a 3/3 green beast creature token for each basic land card type among lands you control. That's that domain effect again. So it's like your domain enabler that also functions as a late game payoff, but it's a little too fair.
Yeah. I don't think this is good at all, but versatility is versatility. There's always something to love in these modern-like spells, especially in draft or sealed scenarios.
It kind of reminds me of like Path of the World Tree, which I expected great things from Path of the World Tree, but it turned out to just be a little too fair, right? 2 mana, sorcery speed, get a land, and then
7 mana, pay 5.
That one you don't have to choose. You eventually get something else. You get both in Path of the World Tree, but even that...
I love that card.
Even that was not good enough.
What it was, bear, gain 2 life, draw a card. Sorry, 2 cards, 2 life, 2 damage. Opponent loses 2 to wolf.
Oh, when you activate the Path of the World Tree?
Yeah, it was ETB, get a basic to your hand, and unactivated it was get a wolf, draw 2 cards, shock something, opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. Yeah. So like Doom Foretold. It was Doom Foretold. Oh, this new card is amazing with Monument of Oketra. The bad Raise the Alarm.
The bad Raise the Alarm.
Best Raise the Alarm. Yeah, all in all, I'm really excited for these cards. A lot of them seem at least playable. I'm just rolling over Squee like an idiot. Liliana entering Pioneer is bound to do something. And this is just the beginning. It's like 15% of the set.
Yeah, for day 1 previews, I mean, this is nuts. So I think I know the answer to this already, but if I had to commit to you now today, Mord, for best card that we've seen so far from the set.
Squee.
Squee, is it close or is it not close?
No, I think it's something. I think Squee is the only card that will see play across myriad of formats. Like, Rabblemaster has been a Magic staple for a while. And I think anyone arguing that this is worse than Rabblemaster is at least 35 years old.
Whoa.
And think Yorion sucks.
Oh my god. This is ageism here. Accurate profiling.
Yeah. This is... So, Yorion sucks, Triumph suck, and Rabblemaster is a staple in mono-red decks.
I and the rest of the writing staff at channelfireball.com are greatly offended by this devastating blow from a young Zoomer.
I'm just saying the truth. You cannot say this is worse than Rabblemaster. Unless the only one that can convince me of otherwise is you're playing this absolutely always on turn 1, and your win con is your opponent not removing this by turn 4 or 5. Oh, wait. Also, Bad Bracer Alarm is amazing with Raffine. Turn 2 this into turn 3 Raffine. And you can get back with Attraction Specialist.
Okay.
Discord is... So, if anybody wants any idea why to share our Discord, every single idea I'm pouring out is coming straight from the Discord.
Exactly. So, we're going to be checking in on all the previews. This is just the first installment. The next installment should come out on Monday. I've heard rumors that our long-lost friend, our long-lost co-host, Zach Manisible Ryle, his ship might be in port. So he might be recording with us. Crossing my fingers for that.
Yeah, we miss Zach, and I really want to spew some bad ideas with Zach, so let's go forward for that.
All right. Thanks, Emmy. We'll see you next time.
Thanks so much, Dan. Hope you have a nice night. Bye!
That's a wrap on this edition of the Faithless Brewing Podcast. Tune in on Monday for part 2 of our complete guide to Dominaria United in Modern and Pioneer. Support for this podcast is provided by brewers like you. Join the Faithless family and help support the show at patreon.com/faithlessbrewing for Discord access, bonus content, and more. That's all for today. Stay safe and we'll see you next time.